Arma Reforger has had a blockbuster few weeks with its release on PlayStation that also saw a resurgence of players on PC and Xbox. The game has been exploding, and it's been really fascinating to watch. But with the surge in the player base, some long-standing issues have risen to the surface, glaring like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Arma Reforger is under siege, not by an enemy faction, but by its own game design. The developers have created a monster, and if nothing changes, this monster will keep ruining the experience for everyone. Let's be real, the influx of new players should be a cause for celebration. More players means more battles and more teamwork and more reasons to log on. But also, it's exposed a glaring weakness in the game's design. There's been a lot of outrage on Reddit and Discord about new players wasting supplies on expensive loadouts, but I think it's just a symptom of a much larger issue. Some people argue that this is a temporary problem that will resolve itself as new players learn the ropes, but I don't really buy that. This issue of players gearing up with expensive loadouts and draining supplies out of every base should surprise exactly no one, because this has been a topic of discussion ever since the game launched over 2 years ago. New players are always rotating in and out, so this cycle never ends. Now, I might surprise a lot of people by saying this, but I don't think that the supply cost of the loadouts are necessarily the main issue, because there are other factors at play. The problem begins as soon as the match starts. Someone, usually a private, immediately builds an arsenal. Supplies are gone in seconds as players grab flashy loadouts. And then what? There's nothing left for critical infrastructure like vehicle depots or antennas, which are essential for extending the radio range and capturing bases. It's like cutting off your own legs before a marathon. Now, I'm the type of person who, if I see a problem and no one else is doing it, then I'll go ahead and do it myself. Don't tell my wife and give her any ideas about the dishes, though. So now the team is stuck waiting for someone to grab a supply truck and do a supply run. But if someone had grabbed that transport truck and slowed it straight into the front line, now that vehicle is gone forever, and everyone is held hostage by people refusing to let others dig down the arsenal, which leads to another issue: supply running. Supply running itself is a miserable grind. It's not because driving isn't fun or the job isn't rewarding, it's because it's usually a colossal waste of time, and I don't think most players are interested in wasting their time, so they don't do it. Here's the reality. You fetch a truck, drive to the supply point, load it up, drive back to base. And your reward? Watching players with 200 cost loadouts drain everything you just delivered in seconds. Even worse is when you arrive at a base and someone unloads your truck for you, robbing you of the XP you just worked for. Think about this. A supply truck holds 600 supplies. That's enough for an average of just 3 respawns for players with expensive loadouts. This constant drain means supply runners can't deliver fast enough to build up bases, fortifications, or critical services because it takes dozens of minutes to acquire and deliver supplies, assuming you didn't get wrecked at the supply depot and have to start over again, but only seconds for players to drain it all. And the kicker to all this? Most players aren't causing these issues on purpose. It's not malice, it's ignorance. Just like most people aren't intending on wasting energy when they leave the lights on or run their tap unnecessarily. Essentially, I think the real issue here is threefold. The first simply being ignorance because there aren't really any feedback systems to let the player know about the impact of their behavior. Sure, you see the supply cost of your loadout in the corner of the little respawn widget, but it's so small it's hardly noticeable, and I bet most people don't even know what it means. And the second issue is the ease of access that players have to impact these systems. It reminds me of when we had the great toilet paper shortage during COVID. Someone, somewhere, decided that toilet paper was the thing to hoard during the lockdowns, and other people, likely in ignorance, saw someone hoarding toilet paper and decided to do the same. This caused an unintentional chain reaction leading to panic shortages of toilet paper, and now I'm forced to stand in line and wait for toilet paper rations, through no fault of my own. I hoarded freeze-dried meat, by the way. This mob mentality is alive and well in games, too. Players mimic what they see, often without understanding the consequences. And I personally don't think that players who are ignorant or even just inconsiderate should wield this much power over the entire team, because now players who are teamwork oriented or that know the game well are forced to navigate the behavior of the mob. Arma Reforger is supposed to simulate military operations, at least it's marketed that way in all the trailers. But when every private can grab the best gear from the arsenal like it's a candy store, the immersion is sort of shattered. There's no sense of progression, no discipline, no teamwork. It's just chaos. In a real military, like the ones portrayed in the game, you'd have an armorer or a quartermaster saying, "No, you don't get the machine gun sniper medic bag with 50 grenades and 5 RPGs. But here, it's just a free-for-all. And it's not just about realism. This lack of restrictions encourages players to treat the game like DayZ or a sandbox. It undermines the entire concept of working as a team. Everyone for themselves. Arma is a sandbox. Game Master is a sandbox mode within Arma. Combat Ops is a sandbox co-op PvE game mode. But Conflict is a PvP game mode with the occasional PvE encounter, and the moment PvP is introduced into a game, players get sweaty and competitive and will exploit every possible option they have to be victorious. That's simply the smart thing to do. It's smart to take the best gear and the best loadout. It's smart to third-person peek around corners and over hills and around bushes. So I think the third issue is that Conflict still somewhat suffers from a bit of identity and needs to figure out what it wants to be, because right now it feels like it's just DayZ with factions and uniforms. And many of the people complaining right now, myself included, have the expectation for a more Milsim-like combined arms experience between two conventional armies. And the longer this goes on, the more people get used to it, which just teaches people bad habits. And when you attempt to correct these bad habits, more outrage ensues on the forums and on Discord and everywhere else, because people don't like change. So what's the fix? Well, would you be surprised if I told you I already have some mods that address many issues people complain about? First, I've restructured the supply system to give players a personal wallet that they draw the cost of their loadouts from, instead of taking from the community supplies. It fills up slowly over time, but much faster when you actually play the objectives by delivering supplies, capturing bases, or killing enemies. It also expands as you rank up. I also have a rank restriction mod that prevents you from saving a loadout if it's too expensive for your rank, and your budget increases as you rank up. Now, that doesn't mean I'm advocating for a Reforger to be as restrictive as Squad. I actually enjoy the freedom that Arma gives you and think that Squad is a little bit too restrictive. Plus, I've already created my own version of Squad within Arma Reforger called Season Secure. With that said, in Season Secure, I have preset loadouts that are much cheaper with perks for each role, such as medics healing faster or radio operators showing friendly map markers if players are within range. Of course, you're still free to create your own loadout, but you lose those perks and it's still taken out of your personal wallet. But that's just what I've created. I think what the developers could do is make it more obvious when you try to spawn in with an expensive loadout. For example, perhaps there's a confirmation pop-up if your kit is going to drain over 25% of the available supplies, giving you the option to proceed or choose the default kit. It would be nice if supplies are treated like passengers and XP is given to the driver, as well as giving XP to players who loaded the vehicle, not just whoever unloads the supplies. This would help not feeling like you're being cheated if someone else unloads your vehicle. Rank restrictions at the arsenal are coming in the next update, and the transport trucks now hold much more supplies, which is a much needed change. Arma Reforger has so much potential, but in my opinion, this is one of those systems that is holding it back. Devs, you've created a monster, but you also have the power to kill it. Let's make this game as immersive and rewarding as it was meant to be. And what do you think? Are supplies and loadouts ruining the game for you? If you got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. My name is Ironbeard, and I guess you'll see me in a supply truck.